We're with Marie here. Well, what do we've got this week? Well, Ford CEO is tired of recalls. So a bit of shocking news, maybe for some. So we're going to really dive into this, put the pedal to the metal, and we're going to be talking about reliability and, of course, not just reliability, but initial quality. So we're going to be talking about studies, quality studies, because Marie is here. She's been waiting for her Maverick for an extremely long time.
Yeah.
So you want to tell them what you've been waiting since?
Not July this year, but the one before. So 1 year and few months now.
Yeah, so July 2020. And before that, in 2019, around the same time, she ordered a plug-in Escape. And that didn't come in. And actually, that didn't come in also. That was in regards to actual reliability, quality, and safety. So we'll be talking a bit about hybrids, of course, because we can't talk Ford without, really talking hybrids. And a lot of these delays in regards to hybrids are actually due to, getting enough quality batteries. So we're going to be talking about that, but this is also very much an answer to, we got to keep Lily with us because last time she almost knocked over the pole, and when Marie, last week's live, Marie walked away because Lily, our little puppy here, was starting to lick the electrical outlet. Now, she didn't get up when she was chewing on my gear bag, which apparently for Marie, that passes and is A-okay. But when she licks the electrical outlet, it's time to go get her.
Yeah, she was trying to pull the plug and she was close from the outlet.
So props to everyone, and let's put the pedal to the metal and get this show started. Now, a good portion of this show is actually answering to a thumbnail that was identical to this. So very similar, well, not identical, different image, but there's a thumbnail coming from Velocity channel saying no more recalls. And, their title was that, Ford CEOs had enough, and, basically heads will roll. There's a lot of good information, factual information shared, and we'll cover that. But there is also not the conclusion I would draw, and I'll tell you why. It's based in, just good old-fashioned logic. So we'll be talking about that. I'm not here for shock and awe. I'm here to have really a reflected, logical discussion with the community. If ever there's a real reason to cancel an order, I'm going to be there saying like, hey, maybe you should really consider canceling this, because of course I've got my own skin in the game, and I would say so if I thought so. But recalls, while they can be annoying, can also be a very good thing and a good sign. A sign of a good company, but of course everyone should work towards diminishing recalls, and Ford has had a lot. Velocity pointed out very well that Ford has had 7, and I'll get to the numbers, the solid numbers at the end, but 7.6 million vehicles recalled this year at Ford. And they say it like it is an extremely bad thing. And they go on to say that Chrysler has had 1.1 million vehicles recalled, and that Hyundai has had less than 1 million vehicles recalled, and GM that they're at 1.5 million vehicles recalled. Tesla, 2.5 million vehicles recalled. So Velocity was kind of making the point that Ford is, in a really bad place right now with all these recalls. And throughout the episode, I'm going to be talking about, not just my feelings over, a decade of direct observation on recalls, not just at Ford, but recalls at GM, recalls at Tesla. Some recalls, if they get made, it can be very bad. When we're talking about safety, so fires, that is a major issue, and it depends about, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about fires that occurred? Are we talking about a lot of accidents or fires that had to occur before, let's say, the government had to force a recall? Or are we talking about a forced government recall where it's not that serious? I'll give you an example. Just recently, the Ford Mavericks airbags got recalled, and some made a huge deal about that. And really, this was in regards to overinflation by, if I recall, 11 millimeters. And we're not talking about deaths here. We're not talking, and this was a forced government recall on Ford. It was obligatory. But in my opinion, not the most serious thing. So, you can't treat all recalls equally. And you have to look at who made the recall, why was the recall made, what did it affect? And, I look at all those things before I write a model off. And, I'm going to blow the punchline. I'm not writing the Maverick off. And we will talk about those, potential Maverick fires that so many channels made a huge deal about. And, there's a big call for now's the time to drop your Maverick order because of fires. We will talk about that because that is another kind of recall, and fires are very serious, and fire situation would be a reason for me to drop a vehicle. But we'll talk about exactly what went down with that in just a moment. But let's just quickly recap some of the good points that the Velocity channel pointed out. They did point out very adequately that there's some major position changes going on at Ford. There's 3 retirements occurring. How forced are these retirements? All we do know is that people are going to be getting replaced, and that, Jim Farley, the CEO at Ford, is wisely choosing those replacements. So let's talk about who is, retiring, whether it's forced or not. We've got a few people here retiring. So you've got Ford's chief transformation. We've got Ford's Chief Transformation and Quality Officer retiring. They're going to get replaced. Joy Falotico, Lincoln's president, is getting retiring. And Stephen Armstrong, who served as VP for India and South America, is also moving on, going on to retirement. So Jim Bombick is taking over quality initiatives, and Josh Halliburton from JD Powers. So he was headhunted, I guess, by Ford to come over to Ford and really help get better quality and less recalls over at Ford. So that's all good news. Jim Farley, the CEO at Ford, in the position for the last 2 years, has been working hard to get the recalls down, the quality up, and actually recalls were very high this year. So the WB asked Johnny's Car Care, when will Ford fix
the low-speed braking issue on the Maverick Hybrid?
Low-speed braking. Okay, well, there was a brake issue that occurred, and actually I thought it was already resolved, and maybe this isn't the same one, but one of the recalls actually was for brakes, indeed, especially on hybrids, and there were different pads selected to fix that problem. Then those pads were actually a little too noisy, and Ford went on to say that they will find a solution for that as well. But in regards to Ford vehicles, their hybrids and the electric vehicles having sensitive brakes, well, that is actually a characteristic of hybrids. Generally, the brakes are a little sensitive. Generally, overall, pretty much most manufacturers, but at Ford, yeah, all Ford vehicles brake pretty early on in the hybrids. It require a special amount of care to get used to. Marie, I'm not sure if we ended up leaving that in our Maverick footage. I think we did when she was trying out the Maverick. And do you want to tell them about your reaction when you first hit the brakes on the Maverick?
I don't remember, but I guess it was
I
quick.
remember.
I don't remember that one. I remember how it felt to go on the road with it, but
I remember very clearly that you kind of hit the brakes and went, whoa, and, really moved towards the steering wheel because you went into the brakes like you're driving your brand new 2018 Toyota RAV4 that you had, or your '08 Escape. Both vehicles, you got to go into the pedal a ways before the brakes started to really function, whereas the hybrids at Ford are pretty darn sensitive. Now, if it's another issue of the WB, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of another fix coming along. I do know that there was the initial fix, so they wouldn't grab quite as much because it was excessive. And then they were talking about doing another fix because they're just a little noisy. So what's going on at Ford in regards to overall quality? Jim Farley absolutely does want to make quality and reliability, quality number one priority, and reliability obviously is a very important aspect. Actually, Jim Farley stated quality is our number one priority as a company, and Jim Bombick is the right leader to deliver world-class quality and reliability at Ford with a disciplined process that runs from our supply chain. So you obviously want to get rid of those supply chain issues. Continuing the quote, to our engineering labs all the way to the factory floors. End of quote. So we can, our first Bronco missing paint on the back tailgate. I've seen some Broncos missing paint on the hinges. Actually, a friend's Bronco had that. Our first Bronco, the windshield wiper container was attached with like a cable tie, a plastic
a tie wrap.
Tie wrap.
Oh. Our
second one, no, it was properly bolted on. So clearly things were done a little quickly in the hectic, wild situation we've been in the last 2 years. Things have not been ideal. And yes, Jim Farley, CEO as of roughly a little over 2 years now. And while he wanted to make reliability and quality number one, it looks like there's going to be a little shakeup to make that happen. We'll see what the results are. But recalls, I do want to put out, when Velocity put as a thumbnail, no more recalls, and it kind of gives you the idea that Ford wants to get to a point, or needs to get to a point where they have no recalls. No recalls would be horrible. Horrible. Wanting a company to have no recalls is asking to be mistreated. It's asking to be in a situation where you go to complain about something and you always get told, no, it's fine, we built it properly, it's your fault. That's really, really frustrating. You do not want to buy from a manufacturer or buy a particular model that's going to have, all models are going to have problems. You don't want to have one that has major problems and get told that it's your fault. A famous one that actually goes back to when the 911 switched to the 1999 model, and the Porsche 911 in 1999 had the IMS bearing and another bearing issue. And anyways, if they go, the motor goes, and people were just constantly blamed when it was just really a very, very poor design. That is the last thing you want to do.
And it's not fun when they hide it too. So you prefer to have a manufacturer that says, okay, yes, we have a problem there and we will fix it right now.
The ideal, Toyota and Lexus have things down really well. They have less recalls, and they're not hiding. They don't try to hide the recalls. But even then, if you go back to 2009, I'm sure a lot of you here can remember when they're having issues with their accelerator pedal sticking, and vehicles just taking off and going and going. And by the way, if that ever does happen and you're in an automatic, press the button down or pull the trigger on the automatic shifter and put it in neutral. Your motor you'll be able to slow down. You'll still have full use of the brakes, and your vehicle will slow down and you'll be fine. And so what? Okay, so if your motor revs up and blows, a good company is going to go, yeah, the engine blew and that's our fault. It's because of the throttle that's stuck down at full capacity, full acceleration, warp 9, and they're not going to blame Scotty. The captain is going to say, yeah, that's our fault. called for warp 9 and we got stuck there. So good companies take responsibility. So in my opinion, not in my opinion, it's if you just historically look at companies and automobile manufacturers, they all make mistakes. Why? They all need recalls because people work there. They're managed by people, they're led by people, and people aren't perfect. So mistakes will occur, and you want to do business with a company that takes responsibility. When Velocity was trying to point out, they're saying it like Chrysler is doing so much better than Ford because they only have 1.1 million vehicles affected by recalls. I have a lot of trouble agreeing with that because in no world in the last 15 years or since 2010 would I say that overall the Chrysler lineup is of better quality and better reliability than the Ford lineup. And maybe I'll be hated on for that, but I think the important thing to look at is what is having issues. What is breaking?
What's the gravity?
Yeah, what's the gravity? So if you have, let's say, a lot of engines blowing up, that is unbelievably serious. If you have touch screens freezing up, which we faced with my Bronco and my Mustang, both screens froze up one afternoon. And I got an over-the-air update at night, and the next day, everything was hunky-dory. Everything was great.
Yeah, it's frustrated when it happens, but
very, very frustrated.
At the same time, it's not a security thing, so it's not that bad, and they can correct it easily.
Yes, and Consumer Reports sends out surveys to their clients, and those clients get asked basically, have you had issues? Have you had to go to the garage other than for an oil change? In the last, if they're looking at initial quality in the first year, if they're looking at long-term reliability, they might, ask over 4 years. And their questions are set up with that. And there's no weight difference between a blown engine, a blown transmission, a blown head gasket versus a touchscreen that froze. And actually, I know a lot of you, like ourselves, like myself, go on Ford Authority. So Ford Authority just recently was talking about the Mustang Mach-E and how it's gone down in rating with Consumer Reports. Now, if you remember last year, Consumer Reports put the Mach-E, gave it a top note, and now they've put them below average. They were on the recommended list. Actually, they were highly recommended, and now they're not on that recommended list. But if you go on, it says, they talk about Ford Authority does a very good job of saying that, Consumer Reports ask their consumers questions via survey, and it's all about essentially, have you had an issue with your Mach-E? They do this across, they survey 300,000 people, but most of the issues were with the touchscreen. So I don't understand how you can wait touchscreen freezing, which can be easily fixed with an over-the-air update. And yes, it required a recall, and a good company, Ford, I think, did a good job. They did recalls there, and that's the right thing to do. So Marie, I have a feeling you've got a question for me, because I know I know you.
Yeah, you saw it pass, huh? So one from Joey said, when will Ford fix the burning egg smell when starting in the cold issue with the Maverick Hybrid? I didn't know that.
Okay, that is actually, I've got some of the numbers in regards to recalls, and that has to do probably with your blower recall. So talk to your dealership about that. And probably the result is going to be changing your blower. The blower has been known to cause, and I don't even think Ford makes that blower. I'm pretty sure that is outsourced, that it's another company. But the blowers that they are getting are the little engines cause odors. They even in certain cases caused a little bit of smoke. And that obviously is a bit more of an issue, much more than an odor. So you probably need your blower fan, your cooling fan unit. Sorry, that's the correct term. The cooling fan unit needs to be resolved. So let's talk a bit actually about really good segue into section of this episode that I wanted to cover. So let's talk about some of those recalls. So Ford, 200,000 units for SUV blower motors. And that's sort of a, hey, sorry, the blower that we put in, we got a bad piece, we put in a bad piece. And it's not as if all 200,000 are bad, it's just they may be bad. So you put in your complaint, then that's how you get your new blower. A lot of, not, there are some recalls that'll say change all of them. So the Maverick airbag issue, overinflating by roughly 11 millimeters from my calculation from whatever it was, 6 months ago, 4 months ago. Everyone gets a new airbag because it just doesn't pass a test. Now for the other recalls, sometimes you have to talk about it for anything to happen. So like on our Bronco soft top, when you open it, there can be some wear that actually wears through the top because of a little plastic warning to not pinch your hand. And they're not going to change everyone's top. They're going to change the people's tops that actually had that excessive wear. Same thing for the rivets on the back windows. If your back window on the soft top of the Bronco is fine, they're not just going to change everyone's rivets because it's not a safety issue and it's not every single soft top that will be affected. So 200,000 for the units for the SUV blower motors. So if you're just facing an odor, not that bad, you will get your blower motor. Talk to your service department at your local Ford store. Now in July, there were the 100,000 US hybrid vehicles over fire risk. And I promised at the beginning of the episode that I'd talk about this. So here we go. Most YouTube channels made a huge deal about that. And actually one of the biggest automotive shows that I do like to watch talked about it. So I'm not going to name names, but he had a bit of a field day. He was really frustrated with this because he was saying, look, Ford's solution is that they're just drilling holes into your undercarriage shield and they're not actually fixing the problem of the motor leaking fluids. But that was a misunderstanding. The actual issue is that the motor is only going to leak fluids under catastrophic engine failure, which means either a very bad accident where the motor is, physically damaged, then yes, liquids could come out, and those liquids, the undercarriage shield basically didn't have the openings it should have. It just would collect liquids and vapors, and those vapors can ignite, and then the liquids can ignite, and you could have a fire. Or the other way is if the motor blows. But the issue wasn't with the motor having catastrophic failure. It was just the undercarriage shield. And everyone understood it as we've got a bad motor in the hybrid Maverick. And that's not the case. The motor is not leaking fluids everywhere. If your particular one is, it's because a gasket needs to be replaced. You claim it, you're going to get a new gasket. But, the 100,000 units, so Maverick and Ford Escape, it wasn't it was a recall every single unit, but it was just because of the situation of a really bad accident, or if the motor blows from whatever reason your motor would blow, you're driving without oil in it because you did your own oil and you forgot to put the plug back, or unfortunately some repair shops will forget to put your oil plug back in and put oil back in. Well, if you drive away and your motor blows because there's no oil in it, well then yes, you're going to have some liquids collect. That shield was not, essentially the shield was just not properly made. So that's part of the 7.6 million recalls that Ford made, but that one really, really not serious. And YouTube made a huge deal about it. It was like huge deal, and one of the best shows on YouTube for automotive talk. Like almost everyone made a bigger deal, understood this to be a much bigger deal than it was, because the original wording of the recall and the news, original news sources that talked about it, it did definitely seem like the engines, it was written as if, hey, the engines could very well have, catastrophic failure. That wasn't the issue. So I just want to cover that. Very important. Undercarriage shield could collect vapors and liquids resulting in an engine fire, but 0 reports of engine fires. So there's your proof. Ford, it was behaving like a responsible company that I'm comfortable, doing business with, having a relationship with, because they recalled something which gets them in a whole lot of hot water with those that are going to blow hot air deliberately. And in this case, there was a fair level. Anyone that misunderstood the recall, it was fair. The wording was rough, but zero fires. They recalled something because they just looked over the shield and they're like, hey, if liquids did come out of the engine, there's nowhere to go, and that's not safe. Let's recall everyone, work on the shield, drill circular holes into it. However, what is serious? Expedition and Navigator 2021 model, 16 fire incidents. And the reason for those fire incidents are also kind of serious. So they need to replace a part and then the problem is solved. But 16 fire incidents across all the Expedition and Navigators sold. It's an unbelievably horrible problem for the 16 people affected. But overall, that is a very, very small percentage. But still getting more on the serious side, that I would take more seriously. I wouldn't, rush. Before taking delivery of my Expedition, for example, I'd want that fan cooling unit changed. Mm-hmm. And then here's a big one. 3 million of the 7.6 million recalls, 3 million recalls were for the potential that the vehicles did not stay in gear. Kind of a big issue. You park your vehicle on a hill, it drives away. Marie and I, we have a rule. We're on each other to help form this habit. We always remind the other person, and I pretty much always do it, but use your handbrake. If you don't use your handbrake, you got, we're talking about 3,600 pound to 6,000 pound vehicles that if you're on a hill and you don't use your handbrake, when you put it in park, what happens? We all experience it. Either goes forward or slides back or slides forward. And all that weight is on your transmission and it's pins that are made to keep it in park. So those pins can break. And in this case, those pins definitely could break. 4 claims, not a big issue. At 4 claims, 3 million recalls. So it's easy to do a YouTube show being like Ford's in hot water. Oh boy, don't buy Ford. Look, 7.6 million recalls. But when you look at the numbers and you really think about it, of the 7.6 million recalls, you've got 3 million recalls. Because 4 units did not stay in park. Not staying in park is an issue, but it's 4 units, and everyone should be using their handbrake when they park to save the life of your transmission. So that is mostly actually what I had to say. Bronco Sport, Ford Authority. You can catch the story on Ford Authority. The Bronco Sport, also with Consumer Reports. It went from, having top ratings on the recommended list, no longer on the recommended list. I don't have the exact numbers. One of the things I read on was there were some head gasket issues. Now remember, the Bronco Sport uses the 1.5 liter 3-cylinder turbo engine as well as the 2-liter turbo engine, which my parents are getting fantastic fuel economy with their Bronco Sport. They're getting 9.3 liters per 100 kilometers, which is pretty good for a turboed 4-cylinder engine that has about 250 horsepower and about 280 pound-feet of torque. It's fun. The Bronco Sport Badlands is a fun unit. I wish for this show I had the exact numbers on how many head gaskets, because that is a serious issue. But then again, you outsource, whether you in-house head gaskets, you outsource head gaskets, there can also be a certain percentage that are affected. And this goes for any manufacturer, any model. And in my opinion, it's all about how is the manufacturer treating its clients. Are they ignoring problems to save money because they're cheap? I don't want to do business with a company that's cheap and isn't afraid to look bad. When you're doing your job right, whether you're an automobile manufacturer or really any job, any career, when you do the job right, honestly, ethically, you can't be afraid to look bad. If you know there's an issue, you got to deal with it. And 3 million recalls for vehicles not staying in gear when there's only 4, that probably could have been swept under the rug. And I can tell you that in the past, a lot of companies have swept things like that under the rug. I remember in 2013-ish, 2013, 2014, GM was caught because they said they had known nothing about this for years. Several times they had been approached, but basically the weight of your keychain The ignition could lose contact. The ignitions were actually of poor quality, and for only a couple dollars, they continued to deliberately go with an ignition that they knew could lose contact and that the vehicle loses power. So no more power brakes, power steering, and accidents were occurring about. And maybe I don't. This going back like knowledge from 10 years ago or memory from 10 years ago. I think there was about 50 some deaths or severe injuries, deaths and severe injuries. So deaths and severe injuries, obviously a major problem, and just having an error on a vehicle cause an accident is a major issue, because after that your insurances go up. So for me, that's the type of thing that makes me go, I'm going to be very hesitant to do business with a company that the government proves was dishonest and said they didn't know about it, couldn't have done anything about it, and on different occasions said, no, we don't have an issue with this. So that's the type of, when a recall and information like that does come out, that is the type of thing that really concerns me.
You want a question?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you were talking about the gasket on the Bronco. So is that true? Adam heard a rumor that the 2.7 liter Broncos are sucking valve.
Sucking valves. Okay, so yes, there were, and I'm gonna be off maybe by 10. There is around 50 2.7 liters. Their engines blew, and it had to do with the valve in the valve train area. I believe it was valves that were not of quality. Also something that's outsourced. And I did do a couple stories on that, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But yes, known issue, resolved issue. And that's something else that a lot of YouTube channels were going on about, like, the 2.7 liter is just really bad. Can't believe you've waited for this Bronco when it comes with such a horrible engine. No, 50 engines, roughly 50 some engines, and they got bad valves. And just like, I've bought good TVs from good TV manufacturers, and sometimes you get one and it breaks a month later. Well, something like that. A lot of these engines, the 2.7 liters, blew, and actually it was in under 10,000 miles, pretty much all of them. The chunk of them were around the 5,000 mile mark. So covered by warranty. Ford didn't try to put it on anyone's back saying it's how they drove, that they mistreated the vehicle, it's their fault. No, Ford took responsibility, put new engines in, and there have been hundreds of thousands of 2.7 liters engines made. If we look outside of the Bronco, and it's been very reliable, a very, very good engine in the F-150. They've been used in the Edge Sport. So good engine. Yeah, no, we love our 2.7 liter. Our last 2.7 liter we sold at 15,000 kilometers, which is about 10,000 miles. Pretty much spot on.
Around it, yeah.
Yeah, loved it. People that own them, pretty much all the comments are really positive. That we love the power out of that 2.7 liter. And well, we'll probably be finding out how we really feel about the 2.3 liter engine, because I had put on, and I'll do an episode on this, probably put it around a certain theme and talk about different data and facts. But I had put a while back a deposit on an Everglades, a Bronco Everglades, and I've now been told it's coming in about a week or two. So Marie, when she found out that news, almost fell over, being like, what, this is not the right timing, because our Lightning is also going to show up in about a week or two.
So Johnny has too much car coming, and I'm still waiting for my Mavericks.
Yeah.
I'm just not lucky, I guess.
Waited a year on an Escape plug-in. Ford chose to lose face. It hurts their reputation because they didn't bring it to market when it was originally planned, and all their pushed back dates kept getting pushed further back. Ford wanted to make sure that when the Escape plug-in comes to the North American market, that it's safe and it's quality. There had been a few fire issues, very few, but if I recall, 5 or 7 in Europe in regards to the plug-in. So like, no, let's hold our horses. Let's make sure we got the recipe just right. But she waited a year, and then it looked like there was no hope in sight, and we switched to a Maverick.
And at the same time, it was new, the Maverick, so that's why we switched.
We hadn't test driven it, but we were like, you know what, this should come in faster. The Maverick's going to be using a hybrid system that is already working quite well. Lots of escape hybrids with the same powertrain were coming in. We're like, well, of course they'll be able to make it. Like, this will come in before your plug-in escape. Boy, were we ever wrong. But then when we test drove the Maverick, we're like, you know what? This is really great. And when I had test driven it in September 2021. And then after a weekend with 3 different snowfalls, one long snowstorm basically in one weekend, Marie drove it, and we were both able to assess that it is worth waiting 14 or 15 months with. It's annoying. It's frustrating. We have our highs and lows with it. But thankfully, we were lucky enough. Our local dealership, I think, is doing the classy thing. Instead of selling a Maverick that they could have sold at a hefty markup, they keep refusing offers on it, and they're like, no, we want to make sure that people have a chance to try the Maverick, and we love it. Yeah, we love it.
Good.
So I know you got another question for me.
Yeah, it's not about the recalls, but the WB wants to know if you have a detailing product to keep shine on your vehicle paint.
I do. I like.
He loves to wash his car.
I love to wash and shine the vehicle. If it's a new vehicle, I really like using a ceramic detailer, and I'll put on 4 to 6 coats with some dry time in between, obviously. Once I get that vehicle really clean, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to overcoat this thing. But ceramic detailer is just a spray, and the risk of making an error and being stuck with that or having a great amount of difficulty removing it is relatively low. So ceramic detailer, that's my main criteria that I'm looking for. Easy to do, hard to make a mistake with. And if you do, it's not the end of the world. One time it cost me 4 hours of elbow work in the hot sun.
And do you need to do this each year, for example?
Yes. And I like Shine It. I also like, and I'm not endorsing anyone. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm still 100% independent. But I do like Shine It. I do like, I like chemical guys, but Shine It definitely, generally Meguiar's I'm quite happy with. So in my garage right now, I have Meguiar's, I've got Shine It, and I have chemical guys. And I'll have to, it's been a couple of years since I've tested all 3, one against the other. But I think I'll get back to you on which was my favorite, but they're all very good. They're all very good. You
change depending on your humor and which scent you prefer that day.
Well, it's chemical guys is often easier to apply, and then Meguiar's is a bit more of a nuisance to apply. But I do really like the results of Meguiar's, so it depends how I'm feeling and what time of the day. If I've got a lot of time and I'm totally not stressed and like I've got all the time in the world, I'll go with a more, a little bit harder of a process. Basically, if I recall correctly, Meguiar's didn't want me doing it in the sun, and they didn't want my paint to be warm. And that's what had cost me 4 hours of trying to remove the ill effect on a vehicle where the paint, my buddy's black Fusion, where he had been driving in the sun. He brought it to me at like 2 in the afternoon. I put it in the shade, but the paint was still hot, and it caused me problems. But I've never had issues like that with chemical guys. So yeah, one or the other. Yeah, I think you'll be, or Shine It, I think you'll be quite happy. Do we have another question?
No, it was the last one for now.
Okay, well, I'm going to go do a little bit of housekeeping when it comes to the Ford Maverick and the Ford Bronco. So tonight, the 21st, you need to have your converted Bronco order in, confirmed with your dealership. Otherwise, you're back at the end of the line. So I really hope that has been done by everyone here in the group. I want to remind everyone, it looks like Lux package is not much of an issue. And Hybrid really is the issue.
I was waiting for you to say that a long time.
Hybrid is definitely an issue, but if you have hybrid and Lux, well, yes.
Not because of the Lux.
One of, and I hope I have the photo here. I always try to screenshot my really important conversations, but I have it on my other device, but so I can't remember the name. But thank you very much to our community member that mentioned. If you're in, tell me, say, hey, that's me. So one of our community members put in the comments section that they just ordered for the very first time back in September an XLT hybrid, but and with moonroof and I think sliding back window, but basically not Lux package, not the hitch. The hitch is constrained, and without any accessories. Pretty much all the accessories are going to be quite possibly an issue, like mud flaps, a roll-up cover, a bed liner. But they did take a hybrid, and they're scheduled already, which really is a pain in the backside. It makes people like Marie and I almost, and a lot of people say, that's it, I'm out, I'm quitting, I'm too frustrated, and they feel like they're quitting out of principle. But just there is a rhyme and a reason for this. It's that if you got constraint on constraint, they just go to build your vehicle and your parts have been used elsewhere. So yes, someone can squeak by with a really simple build, and a lot of the unbuilt hybrids, like hers, have the stuff I've been saying to not have on the order. Now, Ford's doing their efforts. They lowered the price a bit on the Lux package. I can't remember quite by how much. But, sorry, denture dog here is snapping the dentures at me. They lowered the price on the Lux and they removed what was causing issues. The bed rails, the remote starter because of microchips, but microchips are starting to get a little better. But Jim Farley is no longer willing to say when things are going to get better. Originally he was saying end of 2022, then beginning of 2023. But when we look at the fact that the Mustang Mach-E Select got its heated steering wheel back, got its heated seats back, and exterior heated mirrors, but they'll start only building them in March, lets us pretty much educated speculation that things are going to be better by March. And that actually brings me to another point. I'm going to try to slide over right here without causing too much problems here. So great news on the topic of microchips. I did have previous episodes where I said, hey, Ford F-150, good chances you're going to be missing a heated steering wheel and heated mirrors. And that is a pretty big bummer. My Lightning, I'm going to have to, when it comes in, see, do I have heated steering wheel, heated mirrors? But at least with the Lightning, there was a guarantee that it'll get installed at the dealership later on. Now what's really cool is Ford is saying that they continue to confront and manage through supply chain shortages. They have to react quickly to implement many product offering changes. So on October 4th, they published a bulletin advising the removal of heated side view mirrors and heated steering wheel on F-150 ICE. But if you take them off, you got a little credit, but they were never coming back. Well, here's the good news. Heated steering wheel update. We are happy to advise that similar to F-150 Lightning, Ford will be announcing a field service action, an FSA, in the future to restore heated steering wheel functionality on F-150 ICE. So very cool if you're affected, but you're probably not even going to be affected because Ford goes on to say, at this time, we do not have an ETA on when this FSA will be implemented, but additionally, we will be adjusting the value of removal code 94X to $70 per F-150 Lightning for the inconvenience of not having this feature available at time of delivery. So you will get the feature later on. They just don't know when. But please do note, if you do actually pick the complete removal, it's not just them removing them, but if you say don't put them on, you will not include a retrofit for heated mirrors. And even if they do have to take them off, you're going to get your heated steering wheel. You're not going to get the exterior heated mirrors. You won't get those heated exterior mirrors. However, due to the fluidity of the supply chain shortage, to date, no 23 model year F-150 vehicles have been built without heated side view mirrors. So that is the good point. So far, no 2023 F-150 has been built without heated side view mirrors. So I guess I can expect our Lightning coming in about a week or two, if it doesn't get all messed around in transport, because it's been a weird one. It stayed quite longer than I would have expected in a term. If I recall, it was off-site. It was in production for about 3-4 weeks, then finally got updated to sent off-site. So probably putting on something in the bed, whatever accessories. But now it's actually in transport. So their ETA is between the 21st of November, which obviously that's not going to happen, to the 4th or 5th of December. So that's what's going on right there. Also, Ford goes on to say that it's expected that heated side view mirrors will continue to be available through November production. So if you're being produced in November, looks like we don't have to worry about not getting those heated side view mirrors. So if you are missing the heated steering wheel, you are going to get a retrofit. Before, if it was the Lightning, you'd get your heated steering wheel later. And if you're in ice, it was just like, too bad, so sad. If you're missing the heated steering wheel, it's gone for good, and that's no longer the case. So again, it looks like the whole microchip issue, it's getting a little bit better. From what I read between the lines, no one's saying it's getting a little bit better other than Honda. Honda actually, a top exec came out and said, it's getting better. The worst is behind us.
That's a good news, because if they said that, maybe it will be the same for other manufacturers.
Yeah. And Ford CEO Jim Farley has gone on to say that they're going to use more microchip suppliers and that they're going to have, better contracts. Basically, he came out to say like, hey, this was a mess up. This went quite poorly, and we don't want that ever happening again. So we are going to, get this down spot on.
That's
now,
good.
do we have any other questions?
No.
So I just want to mention that, Ford is working really hard on the quality issue. But we need to not put at the same level having a poorly engineered motor, which would count as, a blown out engine counts as one incident, and a frozen touchscreen in a Mustang Mach-E, or in our Bronco, or in, my Mustang. We'll say the Bronco's ours, the Mustang's...
We always switch cars, because I don't have a Maverick, so I need to drive yours.
You drove the Mustang, I think, more this summer than I did. But anyways, having a frozen screen that gets fixed with an over-the-air update, or, when Ford had, the battery issue, the potential issues in regards to fires with the connectors, internal connectors. Well, Ford did an over-the-air update, so that there wouldn't be potential damage to those connectors, which could cause a fire. They did that as an over-the-air update, but Consumer Reports will deal with that, the touchscreen, the over-the-air update for the battery so that there's no fires. They'll treat that like the same way as if you had a blown engine or a blown transmission. So I think you got to take things with a bit of a grain of salt. You have to, grain of salt. You have to look at really what's going on, what's being affected. But I am pleased to see that Ford, Jim Farley, at the head of Ford, the CEO, he said, quote, "We are not satisfied at all with our quality performance, including our recalls and customer satisfaction." So it's good. Ford's going to be working hard at being better. Mm-hmm. That has already proved to us that they're not afraid to get some bad publicity doing a recall that is about safety, even if it's as far away as if your engine blows, the oil could create vapors, and could then cause a fire. It's a maybe, a very unlikely maybe, followed by another, very unlikely situation. They still were like, hey, recall 100,000 units. We're putting holes in these shields, so that can't happen. Should have designed it with the holes in the first place, drain holes. We didn't. We're working on it. And they get bad publicity for it. But I'm not canceling a Maverick order because of it. I'm not canceling future Bronco order because the back rivets were made of plastic and they're just a little too weak.
Yeah, they replace it. There's not a big deal. Finally.
Yeah. And yeah, it's annoying if you go to the dealership 13 times in the first year for recalls, but we're not talking about going to the dealership 13 times in the first year for recalls. The Maverick, of course, a little bit more than if you get a 2023 or a 2024, because Ford acknowledges these problems, fixes the problems, even as unlikely or unproblematic as they may be, but they fix them, and then they also obviously correct them at the factory, so it's not a future problem, which is why we never got an Escape plug-in. It's because they wanted to fix the battery issue before delivering us a plug-in, and I'm really happy that I didn't move on to buying, a Santa Cruz. I'm sorry, I still want my Maverick. I think it's an excellent truck, excellent price, and excellent fuel economy, and really fun to drive.
Yeah, perfect. We have two quick questions before we go. So Gregory was asking if we had any word on the Maverick hybrid start build date.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I don't have that rate in front of me, but I know someone in the community is going to have it from pure recollection. If I could zoom down and show you the desk, it's really not in front of me. I think it's November 23rd is when they're going to, yes, Tim Bartz gave me a good way to remember it. So if you don't watch Tim Bartz, you need to watch Tim Bartz. It's Long MacArthur Ford. Love the guy. And anyways, he said two things that were really great. Great memory. Ditch the hitch unless it's part of your package. So if you have a Maverick, ditch the hitch to get your Maverick unless it's part of your package. So FX4, 4K, or luxury package. And he also mentioned that, easy way to remember when they're building 23 Mavericks is 2323. So November 23rd, they're making 23 Mavericks. And part of that housekeeping, remember, luxury package, not a huge constraint the way it was before. Hitch, yes. Any bed accessories or truck accessories, yes. Get them at your parts department, or, click on one of our links that we often put in our description. You can go buy them on Amazon, and you'll be encouraging us. It doesn't cost you any extra for the parts, and Amazon throws us some gratuities. They pay us. So just so you know, that does help us out.
Okay, another question
yes.
here.
Yes, because I remember you said two.
Yeah, it's about the Broncos. If you have some news, especially for the Bronco order bank after today for new orders.
Bronco order bank, I do expect to open up for the talk. The talk, the behind the doors talk, I guess, looks like they're talking about February. I kind of feel that that's far off. When you think about it, the 21st, tonight, is the deadline for dealers to convert their orders. So take your clients that were 2022s or 21s, didn't get built. Now's the time to get that done. Then I could understand 2-3 weeks of looking at how the dust settles, figuring if you're going to give a few in the meantime, a few inventory to dealerships of things that weren't ordered much, but you have parts laying around on, and then starting the process up. So I would have thought, honestly, early to mid-January. On late, happy Thanksgiving week. Thank you, Tim Bartz. Always great having the legend join us. So Tim, you missed my proclamation of love. We didn't say. I hope I said we love your show, but I might have said we love that guy. So that's kind of embarrassing in hindsight. That kind of just shot out of my mouth the last time. So we'll correct it. We greatly appreciate the man, and we really enjoy the show. So we're just talking about your ditch the hitch, great way to remember it, and 2323 for the Maverick. That the 23 Mavericks are going to start getting built on the 23rd of the 23rd of November. And we've got All Terrain Nation, so David and Kelly over at All Terrain Nation. We love hanging out with them. I will often I've unbelievably cut back on any alcoholic beverage, so I'll have my bubbly water often and hang out with them and have a great time with them over at All Terrain Nation. Now, did we have another question?
No, it's all for tonight.
Did I answer the question, or did I get
Yeah. No, you were
squirrely?
No, you didn't see squirrels tonight. Congratulations.
Wow. Okay, so first official episode. It only took me 2 years of doing this. I did not go full squirrel tonight, so
we need to mark that on the calendar. It don't happen often.
no, we'll try to have it happen more often. Well, tonight it does help. I had a heck of a lot of notes, and I did not follow the order whatsoever. The show changed as kind of came on. And that's sort of what happens when you're covering news that hits the heart. I couldn't follow the order. I had to get right to it. So yeah, big one was Chrysler with 1.1 million recalls, and Velocity trying to present it as like, hey, that's so much better than Ford. And I'd say, I think Chrysler, I'd be more confident if Chrysler was making more recalls, because they're not Toyota. And they must have more things to fix than that. 1.1 million units affected. So Ford had the most recalls of any manufacturer this year with 62 recalls. But recalls can be a very good thing.
They keep us safe.
And it means that they keep us safe. It also means that the product in the future is going to be built with what has been learned and corrected, instead of just ignoring the problem to save dollars. So GM with only 1.5 million recalls, that could be legitimate, but I know they've got certain things they should be engineering things just differently, like AC units on their 1500s where you have to pull the whole engine out is just absolutely ridiculous. Just recently I had a concluded business on a 2018 GM, and I'm going to be putting all sorts of money into that to make sure that the individual gets a good vehicle, but more problems than I would have expected out of 115,000 kilometers. And of course, GM should do a huge recall on the issue that a lot of their starters are problematic. You go to start them up the first time, they don't start up. They usually start up on the second time, and sometimes they just don't start up at all. So sometimes I like the product. I love the Corvette, like the Camaro, but sometimes just a little bit too cheap on the parts, and that's okay as long as you learn from it and the product keeps getting better. So that's what I look for in a company. So thank you very much for joining the show this evening. It has been great. Someone just asked when the live starts. I'm sorry, my friend, this is the end. So we're signing off. We wish you all more cars and more power. And I don't know, do you want to talk about putting the pedal to the metal?
Yeah, put the pedal to the metal, and at the same time I wish you all to have your order, so your car delivered. We want this for this year.
Yes, we do want this.
2024 we'll all have our cars.
And M. Peugeot would be very proud of me. I'll say this for the first time. We wish you, what was it he said? More poodles? More poodles. More poodles and more power. So luckily, Lily did not. Marie did a great job of holding on to her this evening. So
she fell asleep.
She fell asleep. She didn't knock over. She didn't run full speed into the camera stand. And last week when Marie left the show, it's because Lily was licking the power outlet. And I've heard electric vehicles, I hope we find out they're great, but electric poodles, I believe, is quite horrible. But I promise you, my friends, we will keep you updated on our Lightning. So that should be here in about 2 weeks. And maybe I can work out the deal on that Everglades Bronco I put a deposit back on June. Honestly, I had forgotten about it. I forgot I had a deposit on Everglades, and now I got to figure this all out.
Oops.
Huge thank you to all our members for your added support. That is the greatest support you can give us. And for any of you that aren't subscribed, it is a good amount of support. It really does help when you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because that is what feeds and dresses those poodles. And these poodles are Canadian poodles, so we've got a deal. We already have snow. We've had snow for a week. We've got a couple inches on the ground, and we would have off-road footage for you, but the stream washed away the road and we couldn't get to our sand pit. So we'll try to figure out a solution to that. Take care, y'all. Thanks for being here on the show.
Thank you so much.
Wish you all a great week.